चीनी मुझको डाल है रतन सूचना पारो घंटे से 45 अच्छा दवा छुई तो देते रावण छू खेती छू ये वाला दूसरा डाल आंखों का आराम तो मैंने दवाई तो छू पट्टी तो मांग रहे जो पाओ वो जास्त रावण ये फ्रिज में जो रखा है फिल्टर का पानी ले लो फिल्टर का पानी ना सुधरा बचे शाम में तो फिल्टर तो इतना जरा एक बात चैंटिंग बात आज ये प्रवचन 8 मिनट से काम चल रहा है लाइट के साथ बात कर ये तो इसका स्टार्ट कर बोला ना वो स्टार्ट तिथि बात तिथि कर इवनिंग चैंटिंग पेज 14 यो सो भगवा अरहं सम्मा सम्बुद्धो स्वाखातो येन भगवता धम्मो सुकटिपन्नो यस्य भगवतो साकसंघो तमयं भगवन्तः सधम्मं ससंगम इमे हि सकारी यथा अर्हं आरोपिते हि अभिपूजयाम साधुनो भन्ति भगवा शुचि परिनिभूतोऽपि पश्चिमा जनता नुकम्पमानसा इमे सकारि दुगतपणाकारभूते पटिगृह्णातु अम्हाकं दीघरतं हिता यशुखाय अरहं सम्मा सम्बुद्धो भगवा बुद्धं भगवन्तम् अभिवादिमि स्वाखातो भगवता धम्मो धम्मं नमस्सामि सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संघो संघं नमामि हन्दमयं बुद्धस्य भगवतो उब्बभाग नमकारं करोमसि नमो तस्य भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्य नमो तस्य भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्य नमो तस्य भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्य हन्दमयं बुद्धानुसतिनयं करोमसि तं कोपन भगवन्तम् एवं कल्याणो इति सद्दो अभुगतो इति पिसो भगवा अरहं सम्मा सम्बुद्धो विद्याचरण संपन्नो सुगतो लोकविदु अनुत्तरो पुरुषधम्मसारथि सत्ता देवमनुसानं बुद्धो भगवाति हन्दमयं बुद्धाभिगीतिं करोमसि बुद्धवारहन्त परतादिगुणाभियुतो शुद्धाभियान करुणा हि समागततो बोधेशियो सुजनतं कमलं वसुरो वन्दामहं तमरणं शिरसा जिनेन्दम् बुद्धो यो सब्बपाणिनं शरणं खेमम् उत्तमं पठमानुसतिष्ठानं वन्दामि तं शिरेणहं बुद्धस्सास्मि दासीव बुद्धो मे सामिकित्सरो बुद्धासहं नियादेमि शरीरं जीवितं चिदं वन्दन्त्यहं चरिष्यामि बुद्धस्यैव सुबोधितं नास्ति मे शरणम् अन्यत् बुद्धो मे शरणं वरम् एतेन सज्जवज्जेन वड्ढेयं सत्तुशासने बुद्धं मे वन्दमानाय यं पुण्यं पशुतं विद सभ्येऽपि अन्तरायामि माहेषु कस्य तेजसा हन्दमयं धम्मानुसतिनयं करोमसे स्वाखातो भगवता धम्मो संदिट्ठिको अकालिको एहि पस्सिको ओपनैको पच्चत्तं वेदितव्यो विन्योहीति हन्दमयं धम्माभिगीतिं करोमसे स्वाखात तादिगुणयोगवसिनसेयो यो मग्गपाकपर्यक्तिविमोक्षभेदो धम्मो कुलोकपतना तदधारी वन्दामहं तमरं वरधम्ममेतं धम्मो यो सर्वपाणिनं शरणं क्षेममुत्तमं द्वितीयानुसतिष्ठानं वन्दामि तं शिरेणहं धम्मस्सास्मि दासीवा धम्मो मे सामिकेस्सरो धम्मस्सहं नियादेमि शरीरं जीवितं चिदं वन्दन्तीहं चरिष्यामि धम्मस्यैव सुधम्मतं नास्ति मे शरणम् अन्यत् धम्मो मे शरणं वरम् एतेन सज्जवज्जेन वड्डेयं सतु शासने धम्मं मे वन्दमानाय यं पुण्यं प्रसुतं इद सभ्येऽपि अन्तरायामि माहेषुं तस्य तेजसा हन्दमयं संघानुसतिनयं करोमसे सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो उजुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो न्यायपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो सामीचिपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो यदिदं चत्तारि पुरुषयुगानि अट्ठपुरुषपुगला ईश भगवतो सावक संगो आहुनेयो बाहुने दक्षिणेयो अंजलिकरणीयो अनुत्तरं पुण्यखेत लोकसाथी हन्दमयं संगाभिगीतिं करोमसे सधम्मजो सुपटिपत्तिगुणादियुतो यो अट्ठविधो अरियपुगलसङ्घसेठो शीलादिधम्मपवरा सयकाय चेतो वन्दामहं तमरिया गणं सुशुद्धं संघो यो सर्वपाणिनं शरणं क्षेममुत्तमं ततीयानुसतिष्ठानं वन्दामि तं शिरेणहं संघस्सास्मि दासीव संघो मे सामिकेस्सरो संघसहं नियादेमि शरीरं जीवितं चिदं वन्दन्तीहं चरिष्यामि Sanghasopatipannatam Natti me saranam anyan Sangho me saranam varam Etina sajja vajjena Vaddheyam sattu sasani Sangam me vandamanaya Yam punyam pasutam pida Sabbe piyantaraya Me mahi sumta satejasa
अब हम रतन सूक्त का पारायण करेंगे।
Connected to 6B77382D.
Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse Yani bhutani samagatani bhummani vaya nive antalikhe Sabbe bhuta sumena bhavantu atopi sakkacca sunantu bhasitam Tasmahi bhutani samita sabbe Mettang karote manusiya pajaye Divaca ratto charanti e baling Tasmahini rakhate appamatta Yang kincivit Tang idheva hurang va sagge suayang ratanang panitang nano samangatti tathagatena idampi buddhe ratanang panitang Etena saccena suwatti hotu Khayang viragang ametang panitang Yadajjaga sakya muni samahito Natena dhammena samatti kinci idampi dhamme ratanang panitang etena saccena suwatti hotu Yang buddha settho parivannai sucing samadhimanan taikanya maho සමාධිනාතේන සමෝන විජ්ජති ඉදම්පි ධම්මේ රතනං පනීතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යේ පුග්ගලාඨ සතම්ප සත්තා චත්තාරියේතානි යුගානි හොන්ති තේ දක්ඛිනේයා සුගතස්ස සාවකා ඒතේසු දින්නානි මහප්පලානි ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනීතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යේසුප්පයුත්තා මනසා දල්හේන නික්කාමිනෝ ගෝතම සාසනම්හි තේ පත්තිපත්තා අමතං විඝයිහ ලද්දා මුධා නිබ්බුතින් භුඤ්ජමා ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනීතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යතින්ද කීලෝ පඨවින් සිතෝසියා චතුබ්බි වාතේභි අසම්පකම්පියෝ තතෝපමං සප්පුරිසං වදාමි යෝ අරිය සච්ඡානි අවෙච්ච පස්සති ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනීතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යේ අරිය සච්ඡානි විභාවයන්ති ගම්භීර පඤ්ඤේන සුදේසිතානි කිංචාපිතේ හොන්ති බුසප්ප මත්තා නතේ භවං අට්ඨ මං ආදියන්ති ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනීතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු සහවස්ස දස්සන සම්පදාය තයස්සු ධම්මා ජහිතා භවන්ති සක්කාය දිට්ඨි විචිකිච්ඡිතං ච සීලබ්බතං වා පියදස්සිකින්ති චතෝ අපායේ හිච විප්පමුත්තෝ චචාභිඨානානි අබබ්බෝකාතුං ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනීතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු කිංචාපිසෝ කම්මං කරෝති පාපකං කායේන වාචා උදචේතසාවා අභබ්බෝ සෝතස්ස පටිච්චාදාය අභබ්බතාදිට්ඨ පදස්ස උත්තා ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනීතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු වනප්පගුම්බේ යතා පුස්සිතග්ගේ ගිම්හාන මාසේ පඨමස්මින් ගිම්හි තතෝපමං ධම්ම වරං අදේසයි නිබ්බාන ගාමින් පරමං හිතාය ඉදම්පි බුද්ධේ රතනං පනීතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු වරෝරඤ්ඤෝ වරදෝ වරහරෝ අනුත්තරෝ ධම්ම වරං අදේසයි ඉදම්පි බුද්ධේ රතනං පනීතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු කීනං පුරාණං නවං නත්ති සම්භවං විරත්ත චිත්තා ආයති කේ භවස්මින් තේ කීන බීජා අවිරුල්ලි චන්දා නිබ්බන්ති ධීරා යතා යම්පදීපෝ ඉදම්පි සංඝේ රතනං පනීතං ඒතේන සච්චේන සුවත්ති හෝතු යානිධ භූතානි සමාගතානි බුම්මානි වායා නිවේ අන්තලික්ඛේ තථාගතං දේව මනුස්ස පූජිතං බුද්ධං නමස්සාම සුවත්ති හෝතු යානිධ භූතානි සමාගතානි බුම්මානි වායා නිවේ අන්තලික්ඛේ තථාගතං දේව මනුස්ස පූජිතං ධම්මං නමස්සාම සුවත්ති හෝතු යානිධ භූතානි සමාගතානි ආනිවායා නිවේ අන්තලික්ඛේ තථාගතං දේව මනුස්ස පූජිතං සංඝං නමස්සාම සුවත්ති හෝතු ඒතේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන දුක්ඛා උපසමින්තුතේ ඒතේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන භයා උපසමින්තුතේ ඒතේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන රෝගා උපසමින්තුතේ
Now here this course by respected Ajahn Jaisaro, with whom most of us are familiar, the very senior monk of the Ajahn Chah tradition, and we have been blessed to have hosted him in Dhammarama for 2 consecutive years. He came in January also this year. Last year also he was here in January. The topic is Anatta, non-self.
Bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. So in our practice we need a great deal of patience, don't we? And long enduring mind, or constancy of mind, and the ability to do something which is extremely repetitious without feeling that it's monotonous, and to be able to distinguish between repetition and monotony. And monotony is always based on defilement, isn't it? The idea that there should be something more, or looking for something more, being dissatisfied with what is present, being very, very patient, and if we sustain mindfulness moment by moment, then we can apply ourselves to something extremely repetitious without feeling oppressed by or weighed down, a sense of monotony and becoming bored and wanting to turn away from it. And that's a skill that very important to develop, and one that has to withstand the various ups and downs of practice which affect almost everybody. And, I remember reading a very inspiring account of the discovery of the Buddhist cave paintings at Ajanta in Manora in the 19th century, and a British officer who was an artist was given the job of reproducing the frescoes on the caves onto canvas, because they had no other way of preserving, and they were afraid as time wore on and that these most beautiful works of art would disappear. And this army officer made it his whole life. He spent a number of years in those caves, very painstakingly copying the works of art from the walls of the caves onto canvas. And finally, after a long time, I can't remember how many years, his work was completed, and they were shipped off to England and were included in the great exhibition which took place at Crystal Palace in London in the mid-19th century. If any of you, some of you may know that this was a great tragedy, in that this magnificent edifice filled with different works of art and just scientific exhibitions, and went up in flames. Everything was destroyed. And this army officer sometime later got news back in India that on the first night of the exhibition. The work of the last 10 years had all been completely destroyed. So what he did was he just gathered up his paint pots and brushes and went back and started again. And spent actually he did it until he died. In the last 10 years of his life, he completely reproduced for a second time all this, and I thought that was the most marvelous example of the kind of mind that you need in meditation. Just being willing to do that, even when you think sometimes you think things are getting better and better, and suddenly it's like you're back at square one. And, it's not just ladders in this game, and lots of snakes as well. And there doesn't seem any kind of real logical relationship between the snakes and the ladders. Why the ladder should on top of the ladder should lead on to the mouth of a snake. But that seems to be the way it is. You can slither a long way down and not quite know how it happened. But if you have the mind of this army officer, then okay, you're just willing to start painting again, pick up your brush and start again. And that's the kind of attitude which really leads to success. And the practice is one in which we are, our goal is this Buddha nature, Buddha seeing, Buddha knowing, Buddha wakefulness. So in the chanting, the one who knows, the one who's awake. And these are the qualities that we seek to develop. So I think that at the beginning of a meditation, at the beginning of a retreat, or the beginning of each particular session of meditation, having a clear determination, having a determination to attain a certain state may or may not be helpful for some people. It may be one craving and tension, but I think that a skillful way of using this aspiration and adhitana is always to move away from the idea of a state to be attained, that is to say, a result, to the cause, and the cause is mindfulness. But making a adhitana, making a resolution to try for this whole period of meditation, say for an hour, to sustain mindfulness, to be awake and clear for a whole hour, rather than, I want to, in this meditation, I need to attain a certain state of mind, but concentrating on the causal state, the causal stage, and to be mindful, awake, clear, for a whole hour of inhalations and exhalations, or 2 hours, or whatever. This is one way of protecting the mind, not allowing chanda to degenerate into tanha, by concentrating on what you're doing rather than the result of it, making your effort and your intention, your aspiration based on action rather than the results of actions. And always to remember the ultimate goal of what we're doing. As I say, this wakefulness, this awakened state, and clear seeing. And we develop samatha practice in order to stabilize the mind, to calm it, to clarify it, to energize it, in order to give it the ability to see clearly. And this is what vipassana is, a clear space, a special kind of seeing, which can only take place in a mind which has been well trained in calmness and in samatha. without that samatha base, the mind just doesn't have the ability to stay with anything for very long. It doesn't have the ability to penetrate the surface of things. It's always a superficial kind of knowledge. It's the difference between, say, if you open the back of a computer, and somebody like me, and you just see all these, colours and sort of intriguing kinds of connections, and it doesn't really mean anything. But someone who's been well trained can see straight away what's going on. And if you have a machine of any kind, a mechanic, he looks at it and you look at it, and your eyes are seeing the same objects, but he sees that much more clearly than you, and is very sensitive to if there's anything that's abnormal or malfunctioning straight away. And he sees things that you don't see, because he's trained the ability to look. He knows his subject thoroughly. And the ability to see, to look and to see, is based on a certain amount of sutta, of what we call book knowledge, but the ability to bring that to bear on the present moment is greatly conditioned by the calm and peace of mind that we have developed. And what is it actually that we want to see? Well, the three characteristics, anicca, dukkha, anatta. And in the suttas, I often come across the Buddha speaking with the monks. He said, monks don't attach, don't make much of that which is not yours, and what is not yours. He said the five khandhas, rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, vinyana. These are not yours, and this kind of reflection, teaching the mind, encouraging the mind to see the three characteristics, to see the way that things truly exist outside of the meditation period, is a very important part of practice to develop. And this is something which strengthens the mind and gives the mind it gives a kind of a fire or an acquaintance with anicca, dukkha, anatta, with the three characteristics, which will mean when the mind has sufficient calm, then it will be easier to incline the mind towards the investigation of these characteristics. So right from the beginning of practice, learning to open your eyes to the three characteristics. Say if I'm receiving guests in the morning, then you can use this kind of reflection a lot, to seeing reflection on dukkha and suffering, whether it's physical suffering of people, it's very ordinary kinds of suffering, like the pain and discomfort of people sitting on the floor, or old people sitting down and getting up again, and having to have their children or their grandchildren help them up, and the mental suffering and pains and problems that people come to speak to me about. Let's bring this back to this is a characteristic. It's not just a person's individual problem. This is the characteristic, the universal characteristic of dukkha manifesting in this particular way. It's a physical suffering, mental suffering, spiritual suffering. I particularly am drawn to and enjoy the reflections on anatta, and that come up in the mind, and to look at the five khandhas and to be reflecting on them as not self, and to be reflecting on the conditioned nature of phenomena. This the thing which prevents us from seeing anatta is the compactness of phenomena, their seeming solidity, and the way that you develop insight into anatta is learning how to pull things apart. It's a kind of analytical skill that you have to apply yourself to. Otherwise, anatta just becomes, it's just a word, and it doesn't really mean anything. You sort of apply this word to phenomena, and it doesn't really penetrate, and it's kind of ineffective. And so when I was at before I was a monk, I was at school. I had a couple of friends who joined some kind of, I can't remember what it's called now, some kind of socialist movement, and their kind of socialism was that they go to this sometimes at weekends to this traffic lights, and they wait to this big Mercedes or Jaguars or Rolls Royces were parked at the red lights, and they run out and spit on them. And this was their kind of socialist gesture of the weekend, and it's kind of pathetic, as if, and it's like similar here, being like it's anatta. It doesn't really mean anything, it's just a word. If you don't do the work of analysing and breaking things down, and it's just an empty gesture, and it can lead you to be discouraged, and you don't never really quite work out what this means. And so seeing the conditioned nature of phenomena, the way that things exist. It's not that things don't exist. It's not saying that doesn't really exist. So sometimes it's portrayed. It's empty. It's not really there. It's just an illusion. And it's not what's being said. It's there, but it's not what you think it is. And in fact, it's very close to anicca and dukkha. These three words are not as separate as sometimes is thought. So the proof of it, the Dhar, the way of looking at the Dhar is in terms of anicca and dukkha. The phenomena are impermanent, and they lack an owner. This is they're not controllable. They're not ultimately controllable, or they're controllable only within very limited parameters. But because you have a certain amount of room for exercise of will, that you read too much into that, and don't see that actually the extent to which you can influence a phenomena is very very limited indeed. Going through the physical body, it's always the physical reality is easier to look at, and the mental, the material, the physical body, just the changes from when we were a fetus in the womb, through birth, a baby, a child, we grew up, and the body changing all the time, and completely out of our control. We've never been able to influence the aging process. This is something that's just gone on, and something you just to get used to, and to see that lack of ownership, is that it happens according to causes and conditions. So that the changing nature of phenomena, and that things change not in a completely random way, but they change according to causes and conditions. The physical body, the health of the body, the nature of the body is affected by, for instance, the climate, the food we eat, much exercise we have or we don't have, old karma from previous lives. There's the complex interplay of all these various conditioning phenomena give rise to this, what we call our body, and it's changing moment by moment, and you just notice, you get as you get older, and you just start to notice there's certain changes in your body as it gets stiffer, or you get into middle age and you start noticing this kind of more hairs growing out of your nose, or middle-aged men got hair grows over their ears. Have you ever noticed that? Men over the age of 40 are all growing this hair out of their ears, and why does that happen? I don't know. And, just to see the completely impersonal nature of the human body. When I was a child, it's a game some kids do in England, I don't know anywhere else, where if there's somebody asleep, you just put a slight tiny little seed in their ear, and then with the moisture and everything, in a few days you get this kind of sprouts out of their ear. It's really funny. But just to see your body can just grow things out of it. It's just element. And the same, like you're out in the sun and body sweats and get cold and it shivers. And it's just to see that actually said, I'm shivering, or I'm hot. I said, well, what's happening? It's just a reaction going on between the sun and the skin and the human body, which you superimpose this idea of ownership. You're constantly bringing the mind back to that, seeing how the body is just part of nature, and many of the Ajahns in our tradition, Ajahn Mun and most of his disciples, would put a great emphasis on the fact that in our practice there must be some kind of body contemplation, because the attachment to self is so bound up with the physical body. Don't sort of feel that it's too coarse and you want to go into the mind, and that's where the real work is. It's the really sort of subtle and profound levels, but it's the body where really there's still so much attachment, and keep on returning to the nature of the body, and noticing just the way that you shave your head, and before not very long at all, it's just starting to grow again. Why does it do that? The way that your body transforms delicious food into excrement, the way it's pumping blood around the body, and the heart beating day in, day out. There's an incredible cut in that book, How We Die. You give some kind of statistics about the number of times in the human life your heart beats, and if you compare that with a machine in the world, to go for 24 hours a day for 70 years, without a single problem, it's quite an amazing kind of engine. And so, looking at the body, noticing the changes in the body, and noticing the aging process is, I find this really fascinating, both in myself and in other people. If you see friends or people that you only see once every a year or so, then it's that much more noticeable. But to notice, to observe it in yourself, get my age, receding hairline and lines starting to appear in the face. And I remember a few years ago, this photographer telling me that I had a very interesting face. It was the most symmetrical face he'd ever met. He says most faces are very asymmetrical, and then for some reason I was quite pleased by that. So what? But anyway, so always sort of like something that makes you special. And then I developed this line on this side, and I don't have one on satisfied. So I've lost the symmetricality of my face. I feel a bit sad about it. And look to see when the one on this side will sort of grow, sort of appear, so it will be the same again. But it probably won't be exactly the same. So those days have gone. So that's the body. And, Vedana and feelings. And again, when we get into the other four khandhas, and they're very connected, aren't they? In particular, feelings, the existence of feeling, is to say, the fact that you're saddled with sukha vedana, dukkha vedana, and asukha dukkha vedana. That's part of being born as a human being. And that's conditioned as well. I mean, at the very least, you've kept the 5 precepts in a previous life. That's how you've come to have this human body. You've lived a reasonably virtuous life. You've done some good things, some right things in previous existences to be born in this state and to have this kind of vedana. Sukha vedana, dukkha vedana, dukkha sukha vedana. Well, actually, the kinds of vedana, the particular vedana that appears, that arises at any particular instance, again, it's a conditioned phenomenon. It's not something you're in charge of. It's not that you can see a form or hear a sound and decide what kind of vedana you'd like at that particular moment. Of course, we'd all like to probably have sukha vedana all the time, wouldn't we? But it doesn't work like that. And perception is a major conditioning factor, very complex, kind of the way that sanya conditions vedana conditions sanya. If you hear, for instance, you hear the bell for the drink, perhaps, and there might be just a moment of sukha vedana arising, because with sanya, you know what that bell means. In sanya, you've got 2 levels. First is the ear hears the sound, and that's not something that you're in charge of either. If your ear's working and the sound's there, and your mind's not elsewhere, you might be in jhana or nirodha samapatti or somewhere where you can't hear it, but assuming that you're not, you hear the sounds within range, then there's going to be sound. The sanya of it's the sound of a bell, and there's a second level of sanya, which is the sound of a bell at this time of day. And that kind of sound means the sound for a drink, and if you feel like a drink, there's probably going to be sukha vedana arising. And seeing the impersonality of that, and those things that give rise to sukha vedana and dukkha vedana, some things you can say are more or less given. For instance, if you put your hand into the fire, then almost everybody is going to feel dukkha vedana. You say everybody. If it's a boiling hot day and you're pushed out into the sun with no covering on your head or something, you probably find it unpleasant. Certain things are pleasant. You could say inherently so. For instance, if you're extremely thirsty and someone gives you a glass of water, it's very likely that sukha vedana is going to arise. And the example of food is, I think, a very good one to look at, because sometimes we can, as monks, can be a little bit too harsh on ourselves over food, and sometimes what we think is attachment and clinging and craving, in often cases is little more than just the body's saying thank you. You're hungry, you eat once a day, your body wants some food. And I mean, if you only eat once a day and you're hungry and you eat some food, it's quite normal that there's going to be some sukha vedana arising. And it's not always a sign of craving and attachment. And to be able to just to see that as this is vipaka, this is the result of karma. It's not necessarily defilement. and certain things you think really should make you happy, and you feel quite indifferent towards them. Things that you would have thought would leave you quite cold and indifferent, but for some reason bring up a lot of sukha vedana or dukkha vedana. These are conditioned phenomena. There are conditions involved which sometimes you're aware of and sometimes you're not. But keep bringing back to this ida paccayata, as it's called. This is conditioned nature of phenomena. Because seeing the conditioned nature of phenomena is what cuts through the attachment to them as me and mine. Because the me and mine perception is always based on the idea of things as solid. So when you see them as not solid and not controllable, and that you're not in charge of them, you're not the owner of these things, then your relationship to them changes. Right? You'll be able to see things as in flow rather than as objects. Because when you see things as objects, then you become an object, and then you've got this universe of objects. And that's what we're trying to go beyond. The perceptions, they say, which condition feelings and conditioned by feelings. So if you have a pleasant feeling, something gives you a pleasant feeling, then perception's going to arise. Your mind's going to hone in on that. And it's going to hone in on those aspects of that object which are providing the sukha vedana. And so this is why the external world is a world of nimittas. This is what we call the rupa nimittas and sada nimittas. Apart from nimitta arising in samadhi, it's like you live in a world of nimittas. There's a world of signs. What it means is that because of the filtering of like and dislike and of attraction and aversion, rather than seeing the whole object in its complexity, you extract those aspects of it. You pick up on, you notice, you observe, you're aware of those aspects which are providing you with that feeling of sukha or dukkha. And so when you see a pleasant object, your mind censors out all the unpleasant aspects or the neutral aspects. So you're seeing a nimitta of that object, the sign of that object, rather than the thing itself. And samya becomes stronger and seems to become the truth. And memory is to see how people believe in their memories so much. And you hear people talking about the old days, or saying, I quite often get kind of funny feeling, their old days and my old days are not quite the same. And we went back to visit my family this year, listening to my brother talking about when we were children, and talking sometimes quite emphatically, and it's just not how I remember it. And he seems so sure. I mean, that maybe I just got a bad memory. Or, where's the truth there? And if you've heard of these experiments they do, where you have, let's say, all of you are sitting here, and then you have these actors run in and enact a crime, and then run out again, and then they ask everybody what happened, and how many people were there, and how were they dressed, and just to test how trustworthy eyewitness accounts are. You see, it's incredible, and a variety of eyewitness accounts, and people actually, even to the number of people involved, whether they were men or women, and what they were dressed in. And people were speaking very emphatically. Yes, there was a man, he had a red shirt on, and there was no red-shirted man there at all, but the person really remembers it that way. seeing this, the untrustworthiness of it, and the changing nature of it, and how perceptions change, and how impersonal they are. And memories, and how they can just trigger off of emotions and things that remember from childhood and memories, and just something brings up that memory and suddenly you're off into another world. Just how you're robbed of the present moment by this kind of forces that are just arising and passing away. It's not just that it just makes the whole struggle for control that we have just so ridiculous when you realize that just almost everything is out of control. The thoughts that arise in your mind, even the plans and the decisions and what we consider most really me, where do they come from? Conceptual thoughts are composed of language, aren't they? Words, ideas, and words and ideas are a particular language. Well, you weren't born with that language. You learnt it. It's been acquired. So it's conditioned. The kind of ideas that you can form in your mind are conditioned by your vocabulary, by the particular language that you're using, by how much you've trained your ability to think and to think things through. So many different factors, and are conditioned by your mood, and conditioned by the peace of your mind. So in a particular situation, if you're very scattered, maybe a lot of thoughts would arise, but if your mind's been calmed through meditation, perhaps no such thoughts would arise. It's not that given this particular situation, these thoughts will always arise. Again, it's affected by something outside of itself. So you're not even the owner of your own thoughts, even your most private, intimate thoughts. You don't own them. They're not who you are. They don't belong to you. Sense consciousness. You have this body, and your eyes are like this, and you see forms like this, and your ears are like this, and you see the sound is like this. But the particular forms you see and the visual world that you experience are conditioned by nature of the human body. You have insects with Polaroid vision, and their visual universe is completely different from ours. Or you have animals, dogs, or whatever who can hear all kinds of sounds that we can't hear. Their audio universe is completely different from ours. It's not like there's this given universe which we're perceiving, but it's a co-production, of the elements and the physical nature of the sense organs and the mind, and what the mind chooses to attend to. So look at every sort of aspect of your being and your experience, and see this conditioned nature. It's arising and passing away according to causes and conditions, and constantly bringing the mind back to this over and over again. And as with any kind of meditation, any kind of reflection, that you become skillful in it and you become successful in it through this constant application. And it's not something you just maybe do once a month or once every couple of weeks or something, and you can expect anything to come from it. It's something that every day, constantly inclining the mind. So if you do a lot of samatha practice, then what can often happen is that outside of that, every now and again, the mind just rebels and it wants to think. because I've had enough of peace. I want a bit of exercise, and I want to have my own way. And sometimes when you've got that kind of energy in your mind, if you try to go against it too much, you get tense. And so that's the time for the conceptual kinds of meditations, and to use the energy. Well, that's what it is. It's an impersonal energy of mind, to incline it in a skillful and constructive way through these kind of reflection on anatta. And as you develop on a conceptual level more and more, then it sort of sinks in, it seeps in. And then in meditation practice, when the mind gets into more subtle levels, then its ability to recognize conditioned nature of phenomena has been trained and has been developed. And so as you get calm and mindfulness is stronger, you just start to notice that as your mindfulness gets stronger, it gets faster, it's there, then it seems like the objects that come into your mind slow down. And it's like slow motion. You see some kind of float into your vision, and then it floats out again. And you say, well, where did that come from? And just to see how impersonal. So perhaps it's a reaction to a sound, or a smell, or a sense object has conditioned a mental object. And just to see a mental object, an aramana, as an aramana, as something floating in and out of the mind, and realizing that you don't have to grasp onto it. You can just watch it and know it for what it is. And the stronger your mindfulness is, the more easy it is to do that. So being to see this body and this mind just as a mass of conditioned phenomena. And so when you put it into words, it kind of sounds a bit intimidating, doesn't it? Well, who want to do that? To see the body and mind as a mass of conditioned phenomena doesn't sound a very inspiring goal. But those are just pointers or arrows to when you try and articulate, what the experience of it is. But the Buddha it says in the Dhammapada, seeing the arising and passing away of five khandhas is bliss. It's a supreme happiness. So I found this particular kind of reflection on anatta is extremely beneficial in my practice, and something very inspiring to me right from when I first started studying Buddhism. Which I remember when I was first practicing in the 70s, before I became a monk, and then so Buddhism and meditation, everything was all considered very kind of strange, and I remember being criticized by people in the town when I got back from India. I was living at home with my parents, and they said, oh yeah, they say he's a Buddhist, he wears these strange clothes and he lights incense in his room and he sits cross-legged with his eyes and he meditates. And he's turned into a bit of a nutter. And I always thought that was the most profound kind of criticism I've ever had. And I thought, yeah, that's good. I've turned into a bit of a nutter. So this is what we're all going to try and do, turn into a bit of a nutter. A bit of a nicca, a bit of a dukkha, and a bit of a anatta. Seeing these three characteristics. Okay.
संक्षेप में हिंदी में सारांश अजान की प्रवचन का दे देते हैं। शुरुआत अजान ने की कि साधना के लिए धैर्य का बहुत महत्व है, और उसके लिए उदाहरण दिया एक आर्मी ऑफिसर का जिन्होंने अजंता के केव्स में जो आर्ट्स थे, बहुत 19वीं शताब्दी की बात है, जहाँ पे जो आर्ट पेंटिंग्स वगैरह हैं बनी हुई केव्स के अंदर, उनको रिप्रोड्यूस किया और कई साल काम किया, 10 साल करीब वो केव्स में जा के उनको बना के पेंटिंग बनाते रहे। और फिर वो सारी पेंटिंग जब बनी उनको फिर लंदन में ले गए, बड़ी भारी एग्जीबिशन लगाई गई और संयोगवश उस एग्जीबिशन में आग लग गई और वो सारी समाप्त हो गई। तो जब उनको पता चला उस आर्मी ऑफिसर को, तो उन्होंने तुरंत फिर से काम शुरू कर दिया कि दोबारा बनाएंगे, और जब तक वो जीवित रहे तब तक करते ही रहे। तो अजान ने बताया कि इस तरह का उदाहरण कि कैसे धैर्य से और किस तरह से अधिष्ठान से काम करना चाहिए, क्योंकि जीवन तो सांप सीढ़ी की खेल की जैसा है, कब ऊपर जाए कब नीचे जाए कुछ मालूम नहीं। लेकिन अगर हमें साधना में सफलता लेनी है तो हमें अधिष्ठान इस तरह से करना चाहिए। और अधिष्ठान जो है ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि मैं क्या अचीव करूँगा, लेकिन कि मैं क्या कौन सी क्वालिटी को अडॉप्ट करूँगा। कि मैं अधिष्ठान ये रहूँ कि मैं अभी 1 घंटा पूरा कोशिश करूँगा सजग रहने की, ना कि ये कि 1 घंटे में मैं ये मन की स्थिति अडॉप्ट कर लूँगा, क्योंकि वैसा करने से जो हमारा एस्पिरेशन है, छंद है, वो तन्हा में बन जाता है। तो अल्टीमेटली उन्होंने कहा हमारा गोल यही होना चाहिए कि हम जागृत हों, वेकफुल हों। जहाँ तक समता का भावना का अभ्यास है, वो इम्पॉर्टेंट है मन को स्टेबलाइज करने के लिए, शांत करने के लिए, ताकि हम ठीक से देख पाएँ। और वो आवश्यक है काफ़ी, क्योंकि अगर मन शांत नहीं होगा तो हम गहराई से चीज़ों को देख नहीं पाते हैं। लेकिन मुख्य बात हमारी है कि हमारी देखने की क्षमता बढ़े, हमारी सजगता बढ़े, सती बढ़े। और देखने का नज़रिया बढ़ने के लिए जैसे उन्होंने उदाहरण दिया कि अगर हम कंप्यूटर के अंदर खोल के देखते हैं, मैं भी देखता हूँ और एक ट्रेंड मैकेनिक भी देखता है, तो जो मैकेनिक देखेगा वो कुछ और, वो बहुत चीज़ें बराबर समझ जाएगा, लेकिन मेरे लिए वो कुछ नहीं होगा, वो क्योंकि उसको बेसिक नॉलेज है। तो इसलिए उन्होंने कहा कि जो बेसिक नॉलेज है हमारे को, सुत्ता नॉलेज, वो भी काफ़ी आवश्यक है, ताकि हम समझ सकें कि क्या हो रहा है। उन्होंने कहा कि हम क्या देखना चाहते हैं सती से, बेसिकली 3 लक्षण देखना चाहते हैं, अनित्य, दुख और अनात्ता को। और ये भगवान ने कई जगह कहा है कि जो 5 खंड तुम्हारे नहीं हैं, उनको हमको बार बार समझना चाहिए, चिंतन करना चाहिए। और केवल साधना के दौरान नहीं, साधना से बाहर ज़्यादा करना आवश्यक है, क्योंकि वो उस तरह का रिफ्लेक्शन साधना के बाहर करना से ही काम बनेगा। और अगर मन शांत कर हो जाएगा तो हम रिफ्लेक्शन भी ठीक से कर पाते हैं। जैसे अनित्यता का उन्होंने कहा कि आप सामान्य जीवन में देखते हैं धीरे धीरे कैसे लोग बूढ़े हो जाते हैं, और फिर शुरू में बहुत चपल रहते हैं और धीरे धीरे उनको उठना बैठना भी मुश्किल हो जाता है। तो जब भी वो देखें तो अनित्य बोध जागे, दुख बोध जागे। इसी तरह से हर एक जीवन की परिस्थिति में अगर हम सजग रह के देखते रहेंगे तो हमको दोनों अनित्य और दुख बोध भी समझ में आएगा। और अगर गहराई से देखेंगे कि तो अनात्म बोध भी समझ में आएगा, क्योंकि अनात्म बोध न समझ पाने में मुख्य प्रॉब्लम ये होती है कि चीज़ें सब घन में हैं, सॉलिड हैं, उसको हम तोड़ के नहीं देखते। और उसके लिए हमें एनालिटिकल स्किल चाहिए, एक एबिलिटी चाहिए कि जो चीज़ें घनात्मक अवस्था में दिखती हैं, सॉलिड दिखती हैं, उनको हम तोड़ के देख सकें कि उनके क्या कंपोनेंट हैं। और ये भी उन्होंने दोबारा से याद दिलाया कि अनात्म का मतलब ये नहीं है कि मैं एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता, लेकिन ये कि जिस तरह से मैं अपने को मानता हूँ वो वैसा सत्य नहीं है। और ये तीनों चीज़ें आपस में बहुत जुड़ी हुई हैं। और अनात्म की बात बेसिकली इस बात से समझनी चाहिए कि हमारा इस पे जिस चीज़ पे कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है तो वो मैं और मेरा नहीं हो सकता। तो इस बात की ओर अगर हम ध्यान दें कि हमारा शरीर कैसे बदलता रहता है, तो वो मेरा नहीं हो सकता, वो अनात्म है। हमारे जो मेंटल फिनोमेना है वो भी बदलते रहते हैं। और शरीर का खास तौर पर उन्होंने कहा क्योंकि शरीर के प्रति बहुत ज़्यादा तादाद में होता है, तो उसको गहराई से देखना चाहिए। बॉडी कंटेम्पलेशन सामान्य चीज़ों से भी, गर्मी में पसीना आ रहा है, हमें ठंड में कंपन लग रही है, हम कहते हैं मैं काँप रहा हूँ, मैं पसीना आ रहा है, लेकिन सत्य में देखें तो शरीर अपने आप काम कर रहा है, मैं नहीं काँप रहा, शरीर अपने आप ही काँप रहा है परिस्थितियों के वश। तो इस तरह से अगर हम उस बात को अपने अनुभव को ठीक से समझने का प्रयास करेंगे तो अनात्मबोध पुष्ट होता जाता है। कई उदाहरण जैसे उन्होंने दिए, भोजन का डाइजेस्ट होना, रक्त का बहना, बालों का अपने आप उगना, ये सब अपने आप हो रहा है और वो हमारे कंट्रोल में नहीं है। फिर उन्होंने वेदना की बात की कि बाकी जो अरूप खंड हैं 4, उनकी बात की कि वेदना भी हमारे कंट्रोल में नहीं है, सब कंडीशन पे है। जो युद्धपच्चयता का सिद्धांत है कि सारी फिनोमेना जो है वो परिस्थितियों के वश से होती हैं। किस तरह की परिस्थिति है, कैसा मौसम है, कैसा भोजन है, कैसे बाहर की ये हमारा मूड है, उन सब चीज़ों पे जो हमारी वेदना है वो डिपेंड करती है। और वेदना से संज्ञा को अफेक्ट करती है और संज्ञा वेदना को अफेक्ट करती है। तो ये बात हमको अपने दैनिक जीवन में देखती रहना चाहिए और फिर समझना चाहिए कि जो संसार हम देख रहे हैं वो सचमुच में वास्तविक संसार नहीं है, वही वैसा ही नहीं है जैसा हमें दिख रहा है। वो एक निमित्त मात्र है, क्योंकि हम अपनी इंद्रियों के माध्यम से ही देख पा रहे हैं और उसके कुछ सेलेक्टेड एस्पेक्ट ही हम ध्यान देते हैं। इस तरह संज्ञा का उन्होंने मेमोरी का एस्पेक्ट किया, याददाश्त का। उन्होंने वो उदाहरण जो फेमस उदाहरण है कि अगर एक क्राइम हुआ हो और 5 आई विटनेस अकाउंट देखे जाएँ तो 5 लोगों ने सेम चीज़ देखी, लेकिन वो अपना अकाउंट देंगे तो अलग अलग देंगे। इतनी भी हमारी मेमोरी पे विश्वास नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि वो हमारे अपनी संज्ञा पे डिपेंड करता है। तो इसलिए ये बात भी हमको अगर समझें कि हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं है चीज़ों पे, सब कंडीशनड फिनोमेना है। जो आई विटनेस अकाउंट तक भी हम विश्वास नहीं कर सकते। इसी तरह फिर संखारा की विचारों की बात की, अगर हम चिंतन करें कि कहाँ से आ रहे हैं तो समझ नहीं आएगा कहाँ से अपने आप उठ रहे हैं। तो वो कहीं ना कहीं कंडीशंस के कारण, हमारे मूड के कारण, हमारा मन की स्थिति क्या है, कैसे हमारे साथ घटनाएं हुई हैं, कैसी परिस्थिति है, कैसा वातावरण है, उन सब के कारण विचार बदलते रहते हैं। और जो बहुत गहरे इंटीमेट और प्राइवेट थॉट भी हैं वो भी हमारे नहीं हैं, क्योंकि वो भी कंडीशन रेस्पॉन्स ही होता है परिस्थितियों का। फिर उन्होंने विज्ञान की बात की कि जो हम देखते हैं, विज्ञान जो है वो भी हमको लगता है कि मैं देख रहा हूँ और जो मैं देख रहा हूँ वो संसार वही है, लेकिन जो देखने की क्षमता है वो निर्धारित करती है जितना क्या हम देख पा रहे हैं। जैसे कल भी हमने सुना था कि जो पशु हैं, पक्षी हैं, उनके देखने की क्षमता अलग है, तो वो जो संसार जिसमें वो जो संसार में वो रहते हैं वो बिल्कुल भिन्न है जिस संसार को हम देखते हैं। तो इस तरह से अगर हम बार बार चिंतन करेंगे इन बातों का तो संसार की जो सॉलिडिटी है वो टूटने लगती है। और ये हमको कोई हफ्ते में एक दिन या एक दिन में 1 घंटा करने से काम नहीं चलेगा। निरंतरता से प्रतिक्षण हमारे जो इंद्रियों के अनुभव होते रहते हैं उनको हम बार बार एनालाइज करके देखें तो लाभ होता है। उन्होंने एक और इंटरेस्टिंग उदाहरण दिया कि जब कोई बहुत ज़्यादा समथ का अभ्यास करते हैं, मन को बहुत शांत करते हैं, तो जब समाधि से बाहर आते हैं तो मन रिबेलियस हो जाता है, वो नहीं चाहता फिर से समाधि का अभ्यास करना। तो उस समय भी हम इस तरह की एनालिटिकल मेडिटेशन करें तो मन को उसका जो समाधि से जो हमारी कंसंट्रेशन गेन हुई है उसका अच्छा लाभ कर सकते हैं, ना कि उस समय फिर हम अपने आप को ज़बरदस्ती समाधि की ओर ले जाने का प्रयास करें। तो इस तरह से उन्होंने बताया कि उन्हें अपनी साधना में इस तरह से प्रतिक्षण दैनिक जीवन में अनात्म बोध का पुष्ट करने से बहुत लाभ हुआ। और चीज़ों को उदय को देखना कई बार लग सकता है कि वो अजीब सी बात है, लेकिन भगवान हमें आश्वस्त करते हैं धम्मपद में कि खंडों का उदय देखना अंततः बड़े आनंद की ओर ले जाता है। हम ब्रह्म विहारों का अभ्यास करते हैं। कल की तरह हम अपनी जो पूरी मैथा चांट है उसको ही चांट करते रहेंगे और बीच बीच में रुक के वो जो उपयुक्त कंटेम्पलेशन है, उपयुक्त मन के अंदर विचार करना, वो करते रहेंगे। सबसे पहले अपने प्रति मन में हमारे कोई कष्ट हो, चिंता हो, उसको याद करके हम उससे मुक्त हों, अपने मन में भाव लाते हैं। अहं अवेरो होमि, अव्यापज्यो होमि, अनिगो होमि, सुखी अत्तानं परिहरामि। अब माता पिता, अपने प्रियजनों का, आचार्यों का, धर्मचारियों का ध्यान करके मम माता पितु आचार्या च ज्ञातिमित्ता च सब्रह्मचारिणो च अविराहोन्तु अव्यापज्जाहोन्तु अनिगाहोन्तु सुखी अत्तानं परिहरन्तु। जब आरक्षण करने वाले देवताओं से उनके प्रति मैत्री, उनके मन में कुछ रुष्टता हो धरती के प्राणियों से तो दूर करें। आरक्षा देवता, भूमट्ठा देवता, रुक्षट्ठा देवता, आकाशट्ठा देवता अविराहोन्तु अव्यापज्जाहोन्तु अनिगाहोन्तु सुखी अत्तानं परिहरन्तु। आप समस्त प्राणियों के प्रति, उनको भी हम इंक्लूड करें जिनके प्रति कोई रोष हो, किसी कारण से नाराज़गी हो, सभी प्राणी चाहे मनुष्य हो, मनुष्यतर हो, धरती पे चलने वाले हों, पानी में चलने वाले हों, आकाश पे चलने वाले हों, 2 पाँव वाले हों, 4 पाँव वाले हों, बहुत सारे पाँव वाले हों या बगैर पाँव वाले हों, समस्त प्राणियों के प्रति सब्बे सत्ता सब्बे पाना सब्बे भूता सब्बे पुंगला सब्बे अत्ता भाव पर्यापन्ना सब्बा इत्थियो सब्बे पुरुषा सब्बे अरिया सब्बे अनरिया सब्बे देवा सब्बे मनुष्या सब्बे विनिपातिका अविराहोन्तु अव्यापज्जाहोन्तु अनिगाहोन्तु सुखी अत्तानं परिहरन्तु। अब करुणा ब्रह्म विहार। लाखों करोड़ों लोग नाना कारणों से दुखी हैं इस समय संसार में, भारत में, हमारे गांव में, शहर में, हमारी कॉलोनी में, हमारे पड़ोस में, चारों तरफ काफ़ी कष्ट है। हम लोग भी घरों में बंद होने के कारण परेशान हैं। तो हमारी सबकी परेशानी दूर हो, रोग दूर हो, रोग का उपचार शीघ्र मिल पाए। तो मेहता चांट में इसका एक संक्षेप में बात कही जाती है, दुःखामुच्यन्तु, सभी दुख से प्राणी मुक्त हों। हम इसमें चाहें तो ऐड भी कर सकते हैं। सबीतियो विवर्जन्तु शोको रोगो विनश्यतु माते भवतु अन्तरायो सुखी दीर्घायुः भव सुखी दीर्घायुः भव सुखी दीर्घायुः भव। अमृता ब्रह्म विहार, उन सभी की खुशी में हम शामिल होते हैं जो निरोग हो रहे हैं, स्वस्थ लाभ कर रहे हैं और घर में खुशी का वातावरण है। पशु पक्षी प्रसन्न दिखते हैं, आजकल नाना प्रकार के पक्षी यहाँ दिखने लगे हैं। सभी की प्रसन्नता में हम भी शामिल होते हैं। और मेत्ता चांट में कहा जाता है कि एक लाइन कि वो सब की सुख संपत्ति बनी रहे, उनसे बिछड़े ना। यथा लब्धा संपत्ति तो मा विगच्छन्तु। और फिर उपेक्षा ब्रह्म विहार के लिए भगवान की वाणी, कम्मस्य का कम्मदायादा कम्मयोनि कम्मबन्धु कम्मपटिसरण यं कम्मं करिष्यन्ति कल्याणं वा पापकं वा तत्सदायादा भविष्यन्ति। मेत्ता चांट में ये सब फिर हर दिशा के लिए रिपीट किया जाता है, तो उसको करते हैं। पूर्वमाया दिशाया पश्चिमाया दिशाया उत्तराया दिशाया दक्षिणाया दिशाया पूर्वमाया अनुदिशाया पश्चिमाया अनुदिशाया उत्तराया अनुदिशाया दक्षिणाया अनुदिशाया पश्चिमाया दिशाया उपरिमाया दिशाया सब्बे सत्ता सब्बे पाना सब्बे भूता सब्बे पुंगला सब्बे अत्ता भाव परियापन्ना सब्बा इत्यो सब्बे पुरुषा सब्बे अरिया सब्बे अनरिया सब्बे देवा सब्बे मनुष्या सब्बे विनिपातिता अवेरा होन्तु अव्यापज्या होन्तु अनिगा होन्तु सुखी अत्तानं परिहरन्तु दुःखामुच्यन्तु यथा लब्धा सम्पत्तितो मा विगच्छन्तु कम्मस्य का कम्मदायादा कम्मयोनि कम्मबन्धु कम्मपटिसरण यं कम्मं करिष्यन्ति कल्याणं वा पापकं वा तस्य दायादा भविष्यन्ति। और फिर सारे ब्रह्मांड को उसमें उड़ते हुए ऊर्ध्वं याव भवंगा च अधो याव अविच्युतो समन्ता चक्रवालेषु ये सत्ता चरा अव्यापज्या निवेरा च निर्दुःखा च अनुपद्रवा ऊर्ध्वं याव भवंगा च अधो याव अविच्युतो समन्ता चक्रवालेषु ये सत्ता दुखे चरा अव्यापज्या निवेरा च निर्दुःखा च अनुपद्रवा
ऊर्ध्वं यावा
भवंगा च अधो याव अविच्युतो समन्ता चक्रवालेषु ये सत्ता आकाशे चरा अव्यापज्या निवेरा च निर्दुःखा च अनुपद्रवा। उन सभी का आभार कृतज्ञता ज्ञापन जो इन विषम परिस्थितियों में सेवा कार्यों में लगे हुए हैं। तो आए हम सब अपने पुण्य उनके साथ साझा करें, पुण्यों को याद करके। दान के पुण्य, शील पालन का पुण्य, भावना का पुण्य, सेवा का पुण्य। पुण्यस्य इदानि याना अन्यानि कथानि मे ते संच भागिनो हन्तु सत्तानन्तपमानका। भवतु सर्वमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वबुद्धानुभावेन सदा सोत्ति भवन्तु ते भवतु सर्वमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वधर्मानुभावेन सदा सोत्ति भवन्तु ते
भवतु रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वसङ्गानुभावेन सदा सोत्ति भवन्तु ते।
अरहं सम्मा सम्बुद्धो भगवा बुद्धं भगवन्तं अभिवादे स्वागतो भगवता धम्मं नमस्सामि सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संघो संघं